hour for Hacker Times. I'm here right now to present to you Jeremy Zimmerman, a man who probably doesn't need any further introduction. He's done the Quadrature du Net and has spoken on several CCC occasions, as far as I remember. And I wish you, and especially him, a good evening. And give him a random hand of applause.
Thank you very much. Ladies, gentlemen, my dearest fellow hackers, people watching from the stream, people catching up later, good evening, hello. We are living in interesting times where, at the same time, pressure has never been so strong on our fundamental freedoms and on the very structure of the communication infrastructure that we use every day. And at the same time, we have between our hands what I think is an unprecedented power to change things. And us, my dearest fellow hackers, have a great responsibility, I think, into that. As it has been said, I'm the co-founder and spokesperson for the citizen advocacy group La Quadrature du Net. I invite you to check it out on a Twitter account and so on. We try to empower citizens to do their job as citizens when our freedoms are threatened. And we are deeply convinced that we can do something about it. Before we start, small disclaimer. First of all, here be trolls. Be warned. Several trolls are hidden in this presentation. If you can spot them all, you win free stickers. Secondly, I have no clear answer, but I'm asking questions. I'm asking questions that I think we should discuss together. I think that the solutions to those questions concern every one of us. And actually, I'm beyond that convinced that those questions of a free communication infrastructure and of fundamental freedom online are mandatory to be able to address other global issues like financial system, environmental issues, energy, etc. So I really think, well, it is core questions we need to discuss together. Another disclaimer, an important one, during this presentation, when I will use the word political, it is not referring in any kind to political parties, to politicians, but to the way citizens do what they can to try to influence society at large, whether it goes through parliaments and elected representatives, or the media, or just talking to your neighbor. It's about citizens doing their duty to try to make things better. So, this said, we're living in interesting times indeed. I guess that many people who never asked themselves those questions before, when they read the diplomatic cables by WikiLeaks, understood a lot about the power of information, about the power of unleashing information to the world, about the power of exposing crimes, exposing lies. And I think that in a way, the Pandora box is open. It's not a question on who leaks what or whatever. The fact is that hundreds of websites spanned, inspired by WikiLeaks, with the very same ideals of making things better through exposing information and exposing documents. And you can ask around you. I think that people who never thought that the internet was something else than a mere toy for watching cat videos or whatever, everyone had something in their mind when these documents were released. Furthermore, an even larger portion of the general public had an idea of how crucial the internet is for the future of our societies, for the improvement of our societies, for the improvement of our political systems. Once again, ask around you the role that played the internet in changing things in Arab countries. I'm not using the term revolution here on purpose, and we should indeed be extremely careful and watchful of what's going on in those countries after some change happened. But the role of the internet for enabling a public debate, even in deeply censored areas, to allow a public opinion to crystallize, to allow people to organize, to mobilize, and to make the rest of the world witness what is going on. Those are notions that are increasingly perceived around us. Of course, we knew that already. We knew that already for years. We knew that internet could save the world, change things, make the world a better place. But it is slowly percolating in concentric circles around our communities. And I think this is worth noticing. Furthermore, recent events in the field of computer security. Well, the guy initially had a top hat on the original painting. That's, yeah. I think the anonymous actions and the lolsec actions are an illustration that for so many hackers, something changed. So many hackers, well, crackers, whether it's black, grayish, or whatever form of hat, top hat included. Now, instead of writing Kevin Kiddy was here, defacing the homepage of a random website, the same script kiddie goes beyond the information system of that company and checks the database for hidden information, hidden crimes or something. I think we are witnessing as something very new and very young, a kind of political empowerment of some people mastering those technologies. But my point here is that this kind of political action, remember the disclaimer, political in sense of citizen action, this kind of political action by hackers only were a meaning if it comes along with some kind of political communication, some kind of message, narratives to craft along with the action, to explain what is going on, what we know is going on. My very dear friend Benjamin says that for every event of your life, there is an XKCD strip about it. Well, you probably saw that one already. So, when we see that a poster was torn down, the general public imagined that, oh my God, CIA, computers, compromise, hackers, evil. Well, this is what I'm talking about. This is literally political communication. There is one fact. After some point, it doesn't matter anymore. And it's what people will remember about it. What the so-called public opinion, which is a very harsh term to describe communities, societies. What will everyone remember about it? Was Cablegate an attempt to show the world what was happening, or was it some harm done to the privacy of the state? It's a matter of what people remember, of how the message is crafted, what we do about it. And I think that we have something to do about it. In the recent news, when Lockheed Martin got penetrated in some way, we read about it. We all knew it was this Secure ID, RSA thingy that was compromised for 6 months. Everybody here probably knew it for more than 6 months, I don't know. We knew that. Yet, Lockheed Martin in its official communication talked about cyber war. Cyber war. And I'm very much worried that this very notion, it's not even a notion, it's a meme of cyber war is increasingly gaining ground. and that we have something to do about it. Let me explain. I hope there will be trolls. Let me explain. We see cybersecurity, computer security. We all know that there are cyber attacks, cyber espionage, cyber sabotage. We know that there is a need for cyber defense. But when you talk about cyber war, a war is by definition something dirty and something that goes beyond the rule of law. It goes beyond the rules of a society where everyone respects everyone. When you're at war, law doesn't apply anymore. So this very notion of cyber war bears by itself the notion that the internet could become a battlefield. This is not what it's all about. The internet was not meant to be a battlefield. The internet is ours. I'll get back to that later. And we should defend it for what it is, for a tool for bringing peace, not war. So I think we have a clear responsibility here as computer security experts, as people knowledgeable, as curious people, to explain truth from the means of control, such as cyber war. And if you're even more curious and ask yourself, what is that? Why? Why is that? Where comes the money from? Who has an interest into propagating that notion of cyber war? Well, it's not very complicated. I call them the militaro-industrial complex 2.0, 2.0, but actually it's merely an update from version 1.0. Big companies, big equipment manufacturers, small integrators, security company who integrate their hardware. I'm sure, by the way, that some among us on this camp may work for some of these companies. All these sell fear. They sell equipment that can be used for good or for bad. It's technology by itself, it is neutral. But if you look at the presentation paper of the latest product of those companies, you'll notice that more and more it's a notion of control over the network, discrimination over the communications, targeted discrimination over the communication that gets in the front. Is that project flow control? Is that what we want for the internet? Those people selling this hardware in the name of a war that is everywhere and probably an interior enemy. Maybe Anonymous will soon be the next Al-Qaeda. You know, it is everywhere. We have to do something about it or we will all die. But when you look even closer, those kind of restrictions that would be sold in the name of cyber war by those very same equipment manufacturers we saw are the very same kind of restriction and the very same kind of hardware that is used to harm net neutrality, that telcos would love to use in their so-called network management, which in that case amounts to network control, in order to differentiate some voice over IP call from whatever other communication, some connection to YouTube rather than to Vimeo or this or this or that. The very same hardware could be used for the purpose of cyber war, banning access to some resources, cutting down access to bits of the internet because we suspect an attack is coming, or deep packet inspecting citizens to be sure that there is no whatever attack coming through. And when you look closer again, be careful not to hit the glass, the very same restrictions that are being sold for those securitarian purpose, for hurting net neutrality, are also exactly the same kind that are being pushed for by the copyright industries in order to wage their war against sharing. In the ACTA agreement, you heard about it. If not, it's really, really, really time to get started. The negotiators who bypass democracy to impose this thing wish that internet service providers would apply network management policies, measures to deter further copyright infringement, things that can only amount to filtering of communication. And so we have a big picture here, where restrictions to access, control of access, sold by this militaro-industrial 2.0, can be used for policing your own people, for censorship in authoritarian regime, to hurt net neutrality and give way to anti-competitive practice in the telecommunication business, or to impose censorship in the name of an obsolete copyright regime. I think it is really time for us to take these questions seriously. As I told you before, I have no clear answer, but I have some suggestions, some experimentations we are doing at the moment, some ideas I would like to share with you, and I would really like comments afterwards. Against control, against the evil powers that want to irremediably harm the open, free, therefore neutral architecture of the internet we love and share. Datalove. How many of you are familiar with the concept of datalove, with its definition? Well, that's a lot, but I think you're all lying. I think you're all lying because, well, it's my own opinion. I think there is no definition to that datalove. There shouldn't be one. Datalove is about emotions. It's about what you feel inside. It's when you're looking for something for so long and find this great page written 10 years ago by some guy in some other part of the world. When you reach that Wikipedia page and it's so full of stuff, when you find that archive with the integral works of that artist you love so much. It is about the internet, how we know it, how we love it, and how we share it. It is about what is the real nature of the internet. It is about a space that is common to everyone, that is universal. And I'm deeply convinced that it is this very universality of the internet, whether you're on what continent, from what ethnic, from whatever social background, you have access to the same internet. This very notion of a universal good that we share, make it a common good. A common good. Something that we share together, that belongs to every one of us. We are the internet, not Cisco, Huawei, Vodafone, Orange, or even Google or Facebook. We are the internet. And this is what I think we should stand for. We made an experiment in that domain. Excuse me for a second. There's vodka in it. You heard maybe of the EG8 forum, the internet, so-called Internet G8, organized by Nicolas Sarkozy in France. We were following Nicolas Sarkozy and his bad policy regarding the internet for quite some time. And when we saw that coming, we clearly understood that he was to give away the political keys, so to say, of the internet to those companies. This is what we clearly saw before the event began, and we had decided, it was running in my mind for some times, we launched this website called g8internet.com. It probably got unnoticed because actually we managed a much bigger counter-communication by just gate crashing that EG8 thing and well, organizing a counter-press conference and just making some noise in the other direction than what Sarkozy expected. But with this G8 internet thing, we wrote a kind of small political manifesto we try to describe what I'm telling you here, like the internet is ours, it's not theirs. It's because we love it, share it, we use it for learning, working, improving societies, that it is what it is. Not because Google, Facebook, Huawei, and etc. And so we describe that with words accessible as can be, and called on artists around us, graphic designers, people who are not the standard hacker, to participate into illustrating that with pixels, with images, with moving images, with sound, with everything. And we were so impressed by the turnout. We didn't campaign that much about it because, well, I was personally busy on site at the EG8 forum. But we got submissions from our communities, the standard birdie hacker with a greasy sense of humor, as well as incredibly talented and notorious digital art, net art, whatever you call it, collectives, such as the great Fat Labs, such as Jody, Hank Shockley from Public Enemy, supported this initiative. And that's merely 100 submissions in a very few days that landed in our inbox, all for explaining in different ways, with different sensibilities, the message we were trying to get through. I'll show you a little selection. So this is personal action of a supporter who went in front of the EG8 forum with a custom-made t-shirt and took photos of it and sent it to illustrate in her own way what she thought about that EG8. I think it is courageous. I think it is beautiful. This is a bit of a troll. Quite nicely done. The guy who done it is German, so it's all right. This is another one I liked very much. And this is again part of the counter-communication effort we did. For years, we heard Nicolas Sarkozy saying that we want a civilized internet. So I live in France, so when I hear that some government want to civilize some space, I think of colonization. I think of, we try to civilize Africa. And so, for years, Nicolas Sarkozy used the term civilized internet. We want a civilized internet, and so on and so on. And a few weeks before the G8 summit, in a speech about the internet, doesn't use the term anymore. And I talk with some people who advised us, and I say, oh, congratulations, you made him stop using this stupid element of language, civilized internet. And she said, oh yes, it's true, I insisted and so on, but he's a good guy, he really loves the internet, he understands and so on. Yeah. And so what we try to do is to force back this notion of a civilized internet, to put it back, to stick it back on Nicolas Sarkozy. That when he did this wonderful speech at the G8, I almost believed it. Wonderful speech about how great is the internet and so on, and calling for the responsibility of the various corporate actors that were gathered in that room. Well, in the newspaper, they used civilized internet. In the end, this notion of civilized internet didn't go away because we insisted on it. And this is what people got out of it. So it has been proven useful. Like this one as well. And so it is some form of communication, of political communication, that has a little something that is different from what we did before. Well, people from the CCC have great experience with those techniques, and it's not directed to them because they know already. But for the rest of us, it's not only the standard, usually too long press release saying, oh, this law is so bad because if you refer to that part of the Constitution and this and that, and the standard opposition that make us look, like a clutch fists, dangerous birdie activist. It's not only that. Of course, we need to raise the alarm. We are the whistleblowers. We know what's going on, so we have to tell it. But it's also a positive way of saying it. Saying it with humor, saying it with shiny pixels, pink pixels even. And I think it makes a difference. The same way, and I think this is, well, to me it is a major step in the way we do things at La Quadrature du Net, is that we formulated our proposals for now 3 years and a half, something, that we're working in France against Adopi, on the EU level against the telecoms package, against the ACTA, against various legislative and non-legislative proposals. Each time a journalist called, said, yeah, okay, you're against that thing, but what do you propose? And so each time we had something clear to propose. Well, Adopi, the three-strike thing, first of all, there's no problem, so the solution can only be bad. File sharing is not a problem. But then if you want to talk on how to fund creation in the digital environment, then we thought of some funding scheme. We can discuss about it, yes, no. And then immediately you gain some credibility in the eyes or the ears of the journalists. And it really helps making your point. And so on each dossier we had our proposal, yeah, okay, net neutrality, I see your point, but what do you propose? Bandwidth is scarce, you know, you have to manage the network, blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, sure, you have available bandwidth, you divide it by the number of users connected at a certain time, and here you got network management that is non-discriminatory. And so for the first time, we decided to put together all our proposals, to order them according to 3 angles: human rights in the digital society, access to a free and open internet, and sharing of culture and knowledge. Concrete proposal, I invite you to go and take a look at it. The URL should be here, unreadable. It's laquadrature.net/proposals. And it really changes, I can feel it now, it really changes the way that journalists, political representatives, average people consider our action. We're not just that bunch of angry activists. We have concrete solutions. We're not shouting, you know, we're just putting them on the table. Then the political parties can take them if they want. They can discuss them. They can integrate them in the programs if they think it's great. There will be election in France soon, so we can ask them, what did you think of our proposals? Oh, your proposals. Oh, wait. And so I think we have a unique opportunity to show to the face of the world what our internet is about, how precious it is. They begin to understand how fragile it is yet something to demonstrate. And we understand what's going on. We have a responsibility because we own and share that space, that tool. We have the responsibility to guarantee that it will remain free and open, that it will enable the next whatever leaks, the next whatever revolution or spring, the next innovation that will alter communications forever. We have this responsibility between our hands, and, well, all is here. Let's get started. Thank you. Please, save some time for the questions. Well, I try to save lots of time for questions, so please.
And for these questions, it would be very helpful of all of you if you stood up, came here, took the microphone, and talked into it.
Thank you. Erich Möckel, Quintessence. Jeremy, would you be so kind and tell these people where to turn to which organizations, and what help is being needed, because you know it and I know it, but I don't think everybody knows it here.
It's not that much of an easy question, but I thank you anyway, Eric. There are tons of organizations doing great stuff. Quintessence is one of them. We are doing what we can. CCC here in Germany is doing an incredible job for so many years. EFF in the US. I could name so many. Asociación de Internautas and La Ex in Spain. Bits of Freedom in the Netherlands. I think they now have 6 full-time employees doing this stuff. But indeed, that's not enough. Our approach with La Quadrature du Net is not to say, okay, we are doing the job, you can help if you want. Of course you can help, and there are lots of things with which you can help. But the idea is to show everyone that you can do it. You set up a mailing list, an IRC channel, some content management system, a wiki, whatever, and just get things done. Don't spend years structuring, inventing boards and things and so on. It may shock some German ears, but La Quadrature du Net is a non-structure. We're just co-founders. No president, no members, no nothing, no legal entity. We're just doing the stuff. And so everyone can do it. Everyone can stay aware. And you know, Eric, we're all information filters. So everyone can read what's going on, use critical thinking and convey the information, reproduce the information, rewrite it with some other type of language, explain it to some other target or population. And I think this is easier than many expect. And that in 3 years and a half, we've been doing what we've done. We showed concrete examples that it is useful and it works. Not all the time, but when we apply enough energy to campaigning and to something, well, in the end, we win. It's what happened to the software patents before. It's what happened with the political debacle of the Adobe in France. It's what happened with 90% of the evil content that was supposed to land in the telecoms package. And we won incredible battles on ACTA and so on. So it is just to keep in mind that, yes, we can change things. We just have to get started.
Hello, Jeremy.
Hermana.
Hermanito. Okay, thank you so much for your inspiring talk. I do enjoy it. I just want to make one comment. It's related to the cybersecurity or cyber war issue. And what is really in place, so that's kind of concern for me or for us at EFF, is that many of these national cybersecurity strategies means different things from different countries around the world. Many of them have more issues, not only copyright enforcement, but also things about identity management and the kill of anonymity. So the big fight, it's anonymity too, and that's why we have to preserve and fight for. Just a comment about it. And it's also more increased surveillance, it's more improve of lawful interceptions laws and less legal safeguard for access to our data, especially that more and more and more we are relying on third-party providers and the data is not in our hands. So I just want to put that into reflection. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I wouldn't say it's the big battle, but I would say it's one of the big battles, for sure. I'm pretty sure that in our proposals earlier is maybe not. Maybe we should add a point about granting anonymous communications. Thank you. We'll add this, yes. Andy.
I thought I'd come back to your invitation to troll it a little bit. Actually, I've been witnessing information warfare conferences since mid of the 90s. So there is a huge thing going on. And hackers have been what they call attacks under false flags. So we have been the false flags for many operations where stuff has been tested since 15 years now. While we're running now in a debate which is very seriously taking this, I mentioned something, or I realized something, that the big question will be one day, is there a right living and the wrong one? So as long as we live in national states, how do we handle the trouble that, you know, our national governments have this and that thoughts to protect their situation, while we, as global thinking internet, if I say we're the internet, then we don't think in national structures, do we? I mean, that's so fucking old school. So my question is, how do we get to a point where we overcome national governments with all their ideas of separating stuff and putting borders, and then, because if you comply to the logic of a national state, then specific situations like defending borders or defending your national environment is just logical, okay? So as long as you accept that, you run into troubles with your global concept of information peace or data love and that. So my question to you is, how do we make that step to get out of the thinking that is totally in a non-declared way still giving the frame of the discussion?
Wow. Yeah, obviously. If there was a clear answer to that question, the world would be a better place already. But more seriously, I think that what we have here, especially here at the camp, is really a common culture, a global culture, as you said, that go way beyond the borders. So I think this is part of what we should propagate around us to other spheres, other concentric circles around us. That the more people in a given space or country will understand that their internet is the same as the internet of the country beyond, that the video of a cute cat they're watching is the very same video that somebody from some other ethnic or group of whatever is watching as well. I think that this by itself helps getting those global changes we are calling. And I think that we are very much manipulating symbols here, creating symbolics out of specific situations, specific events. This is the crafting of political messages. And those messages go beyond the borders. And I got one clear example here. ACTA. We have one occasion to defeat ACTA. There will be a vote in the European Parliament after the summer break where the whole Parliament will have to say yes or no to ACTA in its entirety. So we have tons of arguments about why the content of ACTA is bad. Broad criminal sanctions, touching everybody on the internet, changing internet actors into private copyright police, copyright justice, etc., etc. But it is now time to turn to more political argument, where we say, hey, elected representative of a European Parliament in a country where I got the right to vote, yo. You're about to say yes or no to a thing, whatever is inside, that will withdraw power away from you to decide what is criminal law in my country. This is not why we vote for. So it is time to build strong messages around ACTA. And if we reject ACTA locally in the plenary of Strasbourg, in the European institutions, locally in the EU, it's the global ACTA. Well, it's not totally global, it's 39 countries. But it's the ACTA negotiated by the US, by Canada, by Japan, by the EU that will be defeated. So we have at hand one occasion to build one global symbol about rejecting the control of the internet. And I think that this might work. And this might open the tiny window of opportunity we would have to push a positive agenda through. Now that ACTA is on its back, we say, now, let's think about the scope of exceptions and limitations in copyright. Let's do that IPRED revision already, all way, with the interest of the public in mind. And this would help us and help everybody around. So, no clear answer, but let's keep that in mind. The fight against ACTA will be a major, decisive battle at a very crucial moment in the history of the internet we love and share. Oh, hi.
Oh, hi. The thing, Andy was referring that he was seeing since the mid-90s cyber war conferences and stuff like that. Well, there's not really happening any kind of cyber war, I think. It's just a marketing spin by the industry that you just presented to us on the 2.0 slide. So basically, there's really no cyber war going on. It's just a mental framing. And it's just like the war on terror or the war on drugs. And it's just a marketing spin, I think. Do you agree on that?
Not at all. Yes. Yes, yes. And when you say a marketing spin, I said political communication. And it's just about the interpretation of facts. It's just about, once again, building a symbolism out of some element. And we can do it. And we can do it maybe better than them. This is, yeah, I fully agree with you, sir.
Hello. Two questions. One is in the perspective of the scenario you design, no? Which is worrying and realistic at the same time. So we'd like you to go on and imagine what could be the development of that scenario. And in that perspective, my question is, do we risk that some kind of attacks brought in internet is used to enforce this kind of evolution? And in that case, is there a problem, or should we also advocate for privileging, also in the dissident actions in the internet, a kind of transparency in the actions, like civil disobedience instead of covert actions, because the covert actions could be used also to justify this kind of authoritarian evolution in the internet. It's similar to what happened in the streets, if you like, no? This kind of no-violent approach that is more and more diffusing in the streets and in the squares now is used also to avoid to justify and help the repressive policies of the states and of the power. So this is my first question.
Oh, wow. That's just the first one. Okay.
Okay, I stop here.
Oh, no.
Well, the second is in the resistance, in the field of the resistance. Now, you showed a kind of military complex of Internet 2.0. There, we didn't see many important companies which are protagonists of in this moment of the evolution of Internet. Does that mean that there are differences in the commercial world, in the companies that are emerging in the digital world, and so we can also rely on differences in that world, in the perspective you described?
Wow. Well, that's actually a lot of questions. I hope I won't disappoint you by not answering all of them, but you asked me about scenarios. Unfortunately, my crystal ball is malfunctioning today, so I have trouble reading the future. But instead of scenarios, I got a few facts in mind that already happened or that are already happening and that we can imagine combined together. One is what's happening to me on my French internet, well, so-called mobile internet provider, on my mobile phone. I'm supposed to have an unlimited internet access. But apparently some filtering proxy is deciding which connections will go through or not based on the user agent of my browser. A browser has to send either Android or whatever phone So my provider lets the communication through. If not, they suspect it might be tethering. And to tether, you have to buy the €5 a month tether option. Well, okay, I use an SSH tunnel and everything goes fine. And that's the way I solve that. But I don't imagine my mother using an SSH tunnel yet. So what I see is that we will all be able to evade, to some extent, those restrictions and get access to the pure and perfect free internet we are looking for. But if its perimeter is shrinking, what's the point? Will we be a few thousands accessing the real internet like we were in '94? No, this is not the internet we care about. So I see that maybe it's some kind of new digital divide, so to say, between the ones who will be able to circumvent control and the ones who won't be. And then you look at countries, well, we said it's allowed to troll. So you look at China, and you see that the governmental-based restrictions in China are constantly evolving, that they got thousands of people paid to monitor individual communications, to detect patterns, to detect new subversive sources, to update the firewall rules, and so on. So the more we will evade, the tougher those measures could become. And I had another scenario in mind, but I forgot already. Well, the point is that it's not just the technical tools that will save us from that. We need massive consciousness of these issues, and we need to increase when we work with the parliaments, we work towards increasing the political costs of taking a bad decision for a member of the parliament. You know, usually they vote like this, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And sometimes there's something big in the parliament, you know, and everybody's, whoa, that's the thing we receive 1 million emails about. What do you vote? What's the And they're shaking while voting. This is what we achieve sometimes when it works. So I think here it's about increasing the PR costs of bad actions. When those companies will be notorious, when people will all know what they're really doing, that they're selling hardware to dictatorship to enable them to surveil their citizens, when they will know that those companies are based in the very same country, the very same city as themselves, when those names will become memes as well, then it will be much more difficult for those companies to operate. Maybe we should aim for some regulation of the selling of those technologies, for regulation of what would be reasonable network management policies, and what would be network management policies that would inevitably harm fundamental rights. This is the point of voting legislation in favor of net neutrality, for instance. But by itself, it may not be enough. I hope it partly answers your questions.
Now we've got 2 questions from the IRC.
Oh, hello, IRC.
And then I'd like to ask anybody who still wants to say anything to stand up now, or otherwise, those 2 are the last questions. Thank you.
Hi, there is Sven G, and he's asking how often has Jeremy been asked or questioned at the border control during your traveling? How often the people ask you because you're an activist and doing this work?
So far it went fine. I will go to the US by the end of this month, so if you don't hear about me,
okay, I will write.
I'll keep you updated. Thanks for your concern.
Yeah, and another question is, should the use of Tor be taught at school for just...
Well, that's interesting. What I think should be taught at school is some kind of minimal e-literacy, not illiteracy, but e-literacy. Like to know how a computer works. When I was a kid, we had in France lessons about programming in the common program, it was done in such a way that it favored French companies and was an epic fail. It was called the plan calcul. But at this stage already, it was considered that kids should understand how to program computers. So this is indeed one thing. But then I think that also kids and teenagers should learn how a communication network works, indeed, and that you cannot do that avoiding the question of identification and anonymization. I also think that there is a very, very important issue to put up in schools, which is the notion of privacy versus publicity. Where is the difference between private and public? So far, only some public persons, like politicians, journalists, whoever, had a public life. They had access to either a party or a media group that enabled them to be seen, to be read. So indeed, when they wrote or published something, publish like in make public, well, they knew what it was about. Today, moving some information from private to public is one click. And I'm convinced that a 10 years old, 12-year-old, 14-year-old kid don't realize what it means to transfer something from one's private environment to the rest of the world. And that this will remain, this will leave traces for a long time. So yeah, Tor would be in my program as well.
Hello. So you talked before about the internet not becoming a battlefield, but
That's not.
well, I'm wondering. So, if war is only a term for legalizing different actions, or for I don't know rectifying, don't know the word, for legalizing different actions, isn't it applied war as soon as one of the parties says this is a war, and then they are doing or acting in other measurements? So I'm asking myself, how could we work against this? How could we work against the internet becoming a cyber war place or something?
That's a good question. I'm no expert in, I think there might be such a thing as war law.
I don't mean it like, I just mean it metaphorically or something, so not really legal.
I mean, one country can declare war to another, but the internet by definition is a global space. So unless we're in the case of a world war, which we don't want to happen, obviously, how the internet could be at war? You know, that some country hates another country and sends a commando, destroys some critical infrastructure or bombers or whatever. Well, happened already, might happen again. Sorry. But then it's targeted and it's a problem between those two countries. The fact that a missile flies through the air, does it imply that air should be put under control?
I totally agree with that, but isn't the companies or countries declaring cyber war or calling it cyber war just a way of justifying stricter laws and different techniques? So how? But then this is already lost as soon as they started somehow, because then they are making it a war place.
Then it's up to us to counter that.
Yeah,
but that's my point.
Yeah. But I'm asking, what could we do against this?
Move some pixels, speak about it. Explain around you to your communities, to your people, why they should spend times caring about that. It's about mobilizing people, making people spend some of their times, some of their valuable time to make the world a better place in the end. So we can all do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, go and contact your member of the parliament or your members of the European Parliament. You can do that today, well, tomorrow.
Hi, I was wondering about a way of what the success of the following way of dismantling the cyber war meme would be. And that would be to go in the direction of the cyber war meme and say, yes, we want if there's a cyber war, we all want to be in this army, wait a minute, I have to finish because we all want to be in this army and be able to protect ourselves, have access to the tools, security tools on our own servers, and create through our networks, a bit like the Swiss Army, a global social web, kind of a citizens' army, which turns into, essentially, a hippie movement. So turn the cyber war into and go further. I was wondering if that kind of argument, because it's more powerful to. Essentially, my argument would be any technology that they introduce to stop this kind of thing weakens us in a cyber war, right? Unless we can protect ourselves, we're weak. So
the technology is out there already. We can use it if we want already. The very notion of a war means that the government doesn't have anymore the same obligations it has to respect every citizen's fundamental freedom. So I don't see how entering into such a state would help us using these tools to make the world a better place.
it was just more of a general direction to put the emphasis on security.
Maybe it's my own personality, but I don't think we should call for war. In general.
No, certainly not. But for citizens' army, where we can participate in the security.
No, I don't want that. I'm sorry.
All right. Okay. That was just a bit of an ad for Switzerland.
Jean-Marc.
Yeah. I think for years, hackers knew they have rights. And after people came, corporation came, politician came, and began to tell us, you don't have the right to. You don't have the right to. And they tend to change the laws. And they launched this cyber stuff, etc. What I see for years now is that teens, young people, are more and more engaged in hacker ethics. They share. They know they have rights. And they see there are old farts that tell them, you don't have this right. My question is, don't you think we have already won? Because people, in the 70s, this one slogan was, make love, not war. Make data, not war. They won't restrain us and people to share data. So it will be difficult because there are some old farts that try to change the laws and try to fight against us. But we're more and more people that share this hacker ethics and these values. So don't we have already won at the long term?
Well, first of all, make datalove, not cyber war, is probably a better title than mine. So I'm a bit pissed at the moment. I should have thought about it. Then I think that in the long run, it is inevitable that we win. Either we win or we let some global corporations and corrupt governments turn the world into havoc. But the question is, will we win before or after entering such a dark age? Will we have to wait through dark ages for a renaissance? Or can we just get there now? And do we have enough resources available to wait? So I think the timing is crucial, that events are going very, very fast. I mentioned ACTA as a way of pushing measures to deter further infringement in the field of copyright. But ACTA is in line with the IPR strategy for the EU by French Commissioner Michel Barnier, is in line with the OECD guidelines for internet policy, is in line with the EG8 and the G8 conclusions. So everywhere at the same time, those political institutions are getting ready to radically alter the architecture of the internet. So I think there's really something happening now, and we cannot lose the opportunity to win a battle with ACTA And yeah, we don't have much time. I don't think we have much time. Oh, question from the internet.
Okay, another question from the IRC channel from Etazor, and he's asking, or just make a comment, you seem to advocate political actions to influence policies about the internet, but the internet freedom can also be preserved by taking measure on own stuff. For example, mesh networking, Tor network, and anti-censorship and stuff like this, which makes certain legislation ineffective. And the question is, what do you think the balance between our own actions and political advocacy, what he's writing there? It means advocacy, should be. So the balance between the activists and the political parties or people.
I think they go very well in parallel. Those mesh networks and other technologies, I'm thinking of the Freedom Box, for instance, at the moment, are being developed. We are talking about research. So research takes a long time, and it has to be done, no question asked. Those technologies may be the B plan, the way we will rebuild the internet after it will be completely altered. So we may need, in a very close future, to go on the roofs with antennas and rebuild something that will allow us to communicate like we used to do before. But at the same time, it is not enough by itself. Like I said earlier, do we want to go back to 1994 when we were a few thousands, happy few, well, I'm referring to Europe there, connected together? Do we want that? Do we want to go back to that time? Or do we accept the fact that your grandmother is connected to the internet, she doesn't know what it's about, how it works, but she has the potentiality to participation, which is what we care about. So I think the two are complementary and that we cannot rest on the technical solutions alone. But on top of that, I really think that because we understand the technical realities, we have an extra duty, we have an extra responsibility to talk about it, to explain it, because knowledge is meant to be shared. This is what the internet is all about. So if we know that things are going wrong because we studied that many years, that kind of systems and networks and so on, we have a duty to share it. And so this is maybe the bridge between technical research action and political action, is that we have to take those technical realities out of our hackers communities and hackers scene and take them into the general public, into society. And this is actually what CCC does so well. We really should inspire ourselves from that.
Jeremy, thank you for your very thought-provoking talk.
Thank you all. Thank you all. And thanks to all the organizers.
We could have discussed so much longer, I'm sure. Unfortunately, within roughly 25 minutes, there will be the next talk here on the subject that we all suck. And now I sucked.
Yeah, I'm reminded that the EFF will organize an event on Friday at 12, I think, near our shelter, La Quadrature du Camp shelter, next to the entrance. So it is a moment and a place when we can prolong the discussion and any time in between.